So, Scotty, it's just been announced that you're coming back over to the UK in May. You're playing 5 concerts. You're starting off by tracing that McCreery family Ulster ancestry by kicking off the run, as I say, with a big open air show at the Botanic Gardens in Belfast on May 23rd. Then you're going to be in Glasgow, Birmingham, Manchester, and London. When this was announced yesterday, I mean, you could very obviously see on social media the excitement. You must be pretty buzzing yourself.
Yeah, super excited. It's been too long. I don't think we've been over there since the pandemic, so it's been crazy times and stuff. But fans over there have been so great and messaging me on Instagram and whatever. So it's time to get back. It's going to be exciting.
Wow. What are your memories? I know you've been over a few times. I think sort of the standout so far was maybe sea to sea, and you got to even see a bit of Dublin and stuff like that. What are your memories from being over here?
Yeah, they're all good. I remember the biggest memory for me is the nerves. I remember just the nerves of going over there and getting on stage that first time, and those nerves quickly being erased after one or two songs, and realizing, oh, these folks know the music and they really are enjoying themselves. And because yeah, I guess you never know until you try. But after that first time, it was like, oh wow, this is something I want to continue to do over the years.
So your current single, Fall of Summer, okay, co-written with yourself, Brent Anderson, Monty Criswell, the great Frank Rogers, Derek George. Um, I feel like every time I turn the radio on over here, it's being played. Can you tell us a bit about how it came together?
Yeah, well, that makes me feel good. I'm glad to hear that. But yeah, when I made this record, I didn't want to do just the same old thing like I've done for every other record, which is typically just going to Nashville, living there for a little bit, waking up, writing at 11 o'clock, and see what we get in the office. So this time around, I just took some of my favorite Nashville buddies up to the mountains in North Carolina, and we sat on a back porch overlooking the mountains. We had a fire going, and we just had our guitars. It wasn't like we were had this agenda to get to. We were just kind of seeing what happens and writing what was on our hearts. And it felt like the old days, back before computers and all this craziness. So yeah, I feel like we got some of my favorite songs I've ever written, and Fall of Summer was one of those we got that trip.
Cool. So, I mean, you treated everybody well. You didn't do an Eric Church and like starve and beat them and make them sleep deprived and all that. No.
No, yeah, we had steaks. We did it up right for sure. I hadn't heard that about it.
And your previous release, Cabin a Solo, it recently became your sixth number one. That was a co-write between yourself, Brent Anderson, and Frank Rogers. It's great, as somebody who grew up on country music and like yourself is more of a fan of the traditional stuff, it's encouraging to see a song that has that sort of vintage throwback quality topping the charts in 2024, right?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, this was one of those songs where as we were writing it, it's a heartbreak song, but I had a smile on my face the whole time because it felt like that music I grew up on that I love so much. So, I feel like country music is kind of coming back around to that traditional style. I feel like folks are getting excited about that sound again, and new artists are kind of popping up. It's like, oh wow, these guys are legit, and it's not the different sounds we've come to know in recent years. It's that traditional guitar pick in country music, which I love.
Was going to ask you about that, but people like Ella Langley, Zach Top, Randall King, these guys now becoming household names, and without following a trend, they're becoming trendy. It's great, isn't it?
I think it's fantastic. I was listening to an interview that Zach gave recently, and they were like, "Well, they're talking about his '90s sound," and he was like, "Well, I grew up listening to the guys and girls that the folks in the '90s were listening to, so that's why it sounds similar." I love that. It's authentic and it's real, and I think that's the main thing in country music. Fans can tell when that authenticity is there for sure.
100%. So the two songs that we've spoken about, Fall of Summer and Cabin a Solo, they feature on the most recent album, Rise and Fall. And, it's very much an authentic screenshot of where you are in life right now. Um, what comes across, as I say, is this is a guy at ease with himself. He knows what kind of music he wants to make. He's not looking over his shoulder, checking out what anybody else is doing or trying to follow these trends. Is that, as long as you keep achieving the chart success, which you are, is that easy enough to do? Or in Nashville and the way that the industry's become so social media conscious, etc., Um, is there pressure at times to sort of go with the flow and like lean into, off the top of my head, someone like a Morgan Wallen? You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Times have changed, and I feel like I've seen the industry change 10 times over since I got started 13 years ago. So, for me, I found what it always comes back to is the music. So that's what I stay focused on. And,
Mhm.
I think the fans, they want to hear good songs, real songs, and relate to, even if our lives are completely different, I feel like the human experience is all the same. So we can all relate to these songs. So, there's pressure. I mean, I hear it all the time from management and labels. We need you more on social media or TikTok or this. It's not my forte. I think one of the things you got to do as an artist is know your strengths, know your weaknesses. It's not my thing, but I think as long as I stay true to who I am as an artist and in the songs, um, I think I can hopefully keep this thing going.
But that's sort of in an old school way. That's what's good about you. There's an air of mystery. Like if you were on social media every 10 minutes telling us what's going on in your life, we wouldn't need to listen to the music. That's when we catch up.
Well, that's music to my ears hearing you say that. I mean, I think that happens naturally, but it's what I'm focused on is the music. And when I'm home, I like to be home. I like to spend time with my wife and my kid, and not worry so much about being, on social media and stuff. And
Mhm.
down the road, I think we'll see whether the social stuff was so good for us or not. But industry wise, it is what it is. So I got to play ball a little bit for sure, but it's yeah, it's just who I am, I guess.
Okay, so this current album, it's your third in a row produced by the trio of Frank Rogers, Aaron Essice, and Derek Wells. Uh, What's it like working with those three guys? What's the dynamic like? And what do you think they've helped bring out in your sound?
Yeah, I think all three of them bring something different to the table. Frank has been a mentor for me, pretty much since I got started. That second album is when we started working together, and we just hit it off. And he knows me, and I know him. And if I'm trying to say something but can't find the words, he knows exactly what I'm thinking and where I want to go. So you got to have somebody like that in the room. Derek is on pretty much every record in Nashville, but the first record he ever had a master guitar on for big label artist was my record with Frank when we did See You Tonight. So he's kind of come along just as I've come along, and we've grown together. And he's just fantastic and knows my sound as well. And Aaron, some of the first times we were writing together are some of my most personal songs like This Is It and You Time. And I just feel like he's got a good sense of who I am as a person, as a guy, number one, and then as an artist, number two. And I think that kind of shows he can sit there in that room and listen, and he can say, "No, I think we need to go this way." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't even think of that." And he knows exactly where we need to be. So they all bring a nice little, like you said, trio, and it works really nice.
Do you like to basically just deliver your role, heavily involved in the writing, the singing, or do you have an interest in maybe further down the line getting involved in the production side of things?
Yeah, I think I'm always involved in the production. I always, I've been lucky to have a team where I can have final say in pretty
Mhm.
much everything. So if I hear something going one way, I can say, "Hey, why don't we lean this direction instead?"
Mhm.
But those guys are much more in tune to the minute details that I might not hear and stuff. So I let them kind of do their thing, but they let me have final say, which is a great thing. Typically, we all agree. It's very rare that we don't.
It's crazy, when you look at the last, I think it's 13 years now you've been releasing music. It really has sort of played out like a movie, from the extreme fame and highs of American Idol to, parting ways with a record label and then the big comeback. And now you are one of the most successful, well respected guys in country music. For people looking on, because it's such a competitive industry, what advice would you give to aspiring singer songwriters?
Yeah, well, thank you. Number one, it has been, it felt like a movie, sometimes a horror movie, sometimes a love story. So you never know. But, for the newcomers coming on, it still feels weird to be 30 years old, trying to talk to the newcomers that are probably my age. But, um, yeah, it's very important for me to stay true to who I am as a person, number one, and an artist, number two. And there's a lot of different people out there with a lot of different opinions, and you need to listen to them. I mean, there's a lot of folks that have a lot of great ideas, but at the end of the day, it's got to feel good to who you are. You got to live with yourself. You got to look yourself in the mirror. So write songs you believe in, make records you believe in, and hopefully, things work out and let the chips fall where they may. But You got to be able to be happy with yourself, number one. So
Yeah, yeah. And last December, you received an invitation to become an Opry member from Garth Brooks. And then in April, you were inducted by Josh Turner and Randy Travis. I mean, three of your biggest influences. What are your memories of those two nights, that period? And has it always been on the bucket list to one day be an Opry member? Like, what does that mean to you?
yeah, the Opry was the top of the bucket list for me. So I got to kind of figure out what I want to do next. But um, yeah, so many great memories from both of those nights. The induction night, I remember just thinking I'd be singing a few Christmas songs and I'd be in bed by 9:30. You know, that was kind of the plan. Very normal night. I do remember backstage in our dressing room, our little boy Avery took his first steps with the Grand Ole Opry that night that I got the invitation. So that's
Wow.
kind of a cool memory for us that it was that night. But seeing Garth walk on stage immediately, I was like, oh, something's happening here, you know. And then for Josh and Randy, two guys that I grew up idolizing, learning their songs on guitar, just loving their music. Couldn't have been more perfect. And the Opry it's home now. It always felt like home, but now I can really call it home.
Does it still feel the same every time when you stand in that circle? Yeah.
Feels a little different now, being accepted into the family. You know, I can call those folks that stood in the circle, you know, brothers and sisters now, you know, the Opry family. So that's pretty special for me, and I don't take that lightly at all. But yeah, as far as how great it feels to play the Opry, that hasn't changed. It's still my favorite stage to play.
There's a great, very tender song on the current album called Love Like This. And, obviously inspired by the birth of your son. And he's about to turn two, Avery. How or what has becoming a father? How has that influenced your outlook on your career and your artistry and even your personal life?
Yeah, it changes everything. You know, it really does. It changes your perspective on life, on what's important, on how many tour dates you want to do. You know, what you want to say in your songs, so he can grow up listening to them and be proud of his daddy's songs and stuff. So I think it changes just about everything. So in a good way, it's been the coolest thing, the best thing I've ever done in my life. So yeah, I think you can see that in some of these songs, you know, just the way these songs were written, and hearing songs like Love Like This or Porch, or it's a couple of, we wrote a ton of daddy songs. We could have made three records, um, but yeah, it just changes your life. So it has to change the music.
Yeah. Would you ever do like a Luke Combs and do a fathers and sons sort of album?
Be fun. I think there's just a few artists in the world that can do that. You know, I gotta still kind of be focused, you know, on what I do, trying to get these radio singles and stuff. You know, writing songs that are true to me. But
Mhm.
Luke is on another planet as far as just being able to do stadiums, and he's just, him and Morgan, man. It's unreal. They're so crazy talented.
I think I've asked you this twice before, but I'll do it again. Are you any closer to giving us that gospel album?
I'd love to do that. That would be a special thing. That'd be again down the road probably. I know what my constraints are with my contractual stuff, but as long as I'm making music and stuff, and down, you know, I think one day that will happen.